Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. We're glad to have you in the conversation. 888-589-8840, a number to call if you want to join the program. We'll go back to the phones here in just a moment. Looking at another poll, this time from Gallup, that indicates that most Americans believe that religion is losing its influence in the United States. Over 3/4 of Americans say religion is losing its influence on American life, while just 20% say religion's influence is increasing. These represent Americans' most negative evaluations of the impact of religion since 1970. Americans over the years have generally been more likely to say religion is losing rather than increasing its influence in American life. But it's interesting that 77% of the American people say that religion is losing its influence on American life, and 75% of the American people say that that is a bad thing. And I want you to remember that, because 77%, I think it's just obvious that Christianity in particular is losing its influence in American life. We're getting banished. I mean, Jim Crow laws are alive and well. I've got a story in the sack. It's from the UK, but the same thing is happening here in the United States. There were 2 workers that were fired in the UK over their support for natural marriage. Who couldn't get on board with the homosexual agenda. They got fired. So the Jim Crow laws are alive and well, and Christians are the ones that are victimized by these Jim Crow laws, these segregation laws. Christians need not apply and all that kind of stuff. The Jim Crow laws are alive and well, and Christians are the victims of these laws. So part of the reason that Christianity is losing its influence in American life is it's being banished. We're being silenced. People are putting bags over our heads and sticking a sock in our mouth and telling us to be quiet, sit in the corner. You should be seen and not heard, and we don't even want to see you after a while. So that's the reason that religion is losing its influence. The secular fundamentalists are squelching freedom of speech and freedom of religion in America, but 75% of Americans think that that is a bad thing. Now, that's the encouraging part of all of this. They think this is bad, that this is a bad idea. Most Americans, 75%, say it would be positive for American society if more Americans were religious. So the American people, 75% of them say, look, America would be better off if there were more people in America who were conscious of God, who had religious sensibilities, who were pursuing worship, who were pursuing a relationship with God. That would be a good thing for America. Now, the reason I say we ought to be encouraged by that is that means we've got something to work with. 75% of people who live in America think we need more religion, by which they primarily mean Christianity, need more religion in America, not less. And they are lamenting the fact that Christianity in particular is being banished from the public square. So that's actually very, very good news in my judgment. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Katrina in Minceville, Ohio. Katrina, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call. I have 2 points about abortion.
Yes, ma'am.
First off, I had a conversation with a fellow Christian about abortion recently, and I said that we need to pray and be moved to action to get abortion at all stages illegal. And the other Christian said that they knew someone in the 1950s, when abortion was illegal, who got a back alley abortion in New York City, and that basically whether it's legal or not, women are going to get abortions anyway, so what's the point of getting it outlawed, because people's hearts are corrupt and laws can't change people's hearts. And that kind of attitude honestly makes me upset, because, that's the exact reason why all these millions of babies have been ripped out of their mother's womb, on the church's watch. And in the same line of logic, why laws against murder or thievery or incest or rape,
Well, and that's exactly right, Katrina, and that is the proper response to make. We have not been able to prevent murder. People are getting murdered every day, and a lot of them are getting murdered in back alleys. So does that mean we ought to stop the effort to protect innocent human life from murder. We ought to get rid of all our murder laws. I mean, it's just absurd. So that's a great response.
And my second point is somewhat controversial, and in that I believe that the church needs to create a church culture that embraces life. As as Christians, we need to look at babies and children through God's eyes as blessings and rewards, not a burden or liability on our finances or whatever it might be. And we need to love life, and that means welcoming children into our families beyond the socially acceptable 2.1 children per couple. And I think the culture that socially accepted birth control back in the 20s and 30s ushered in the culture of unlimited abortion, in the 1970s. And abortion is basically just a violent, murderous form of birth control. And I know it's controversial, but I think it's the truth. And I think in the church, we need to love life and love big families and support them and encourage married couples to embrace fruitfulness and multiplication like God commanded us to.
Yeah. Well, and you think about our prior conversation, Katrina, in the last segment about the declining fertility rate in America. Now in the native population, for the first time in recent memory, the fertility rate among the native-born population is now below the fertility rate. The fertility rate in America, even in the native population, was above the fertility rate, but now it's dropped below 2.1, and so we are dependent upon immigration now in order to maintain our population growth, and that's where you start corrupting your culture and all that. So you think about it, Katrina, the most patriotic thing that a married couple can do is bring babies into the world. It's good for them, it pleases God, and is great for the United States of America because we need more people. In fact, I've suggested, Katrina, if you look at the Bible's prescription, Genesis 1:28, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. God's never changed his mind about that. He's never rescinded it. He's never abrogated. He's never even modified it. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. In fact, I think that's probably the first command that he gave to Adam and Eve. The first command he gave to mankind was have kids, have babies, have lots of them. And the point I've made is the instruction there from God is to be fruitful and multiply. Now, if you just have 2 kids, you're not multiplying, you're just replacing. The only way that you can multiply is to have more than 2 kids. Now, you can't always have more than 2 kids. You can have medical, biological complications. Debbie and I did. So 2 was all medically and health-wise that we were able to have. But the idea is that the evangelical standard ought to be 3. That ought to be the minimum that a Christian couple shoots for, because that's the only way they can obey the command of God to not just be fruitful, but to multiply and fill the earth. All right, Katrina, great call. Thank you very much for that. The Gosnell thing, this whole business, Gosnell, his practice was basically one big giant back alley butcher shop. You talk about back alley abortion. That was Gosnell's abortion clinic. And yet, abortion is completely legal. You got Planned Parenthood clinics in virtually every minority neighborhood in America, perfectly accessible, perfectly affordable. A lot of states you can get a taxpayer subsidized or funded abortion, and you still have back alley abortions. And so again, Katrina's point is we don't get rid of laws against murder because people still kill other people. Say, no, the law is good. We just need to enforce it. People need to be punished for taking innocent life. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.